Welcome back to In Your Corner with me, D, Boxer Big D. But apologies that this has been late. I had done a previous recording of this and it went on for over 2 hours. I can talk and talk about things that I am definitely interested in. Be lovely to get people on and we can have a proper conversation about stuff like so. Um, well, today's episode is going to be on identity. Um, yeah, I can have another conversation with somebody about it, so it should be interesting. I'll not be able to get through everything that I talked about in 2 hours on this episode, so I'm really trying to stick to certain talking points and yeah, hopefully it is of interest to somebody else. Hopefully my experience might be helpful to other people. And yeah, let's get going. So this episode is on identity, and the reason that I'm doing this one first as an episode is just a lot of politics at the minute center around identity, arguably, and specifically my interactions with young people that I've supported, and even my own experience as a person is shaped largely by the concept of identity. And yeah, look, I think at this moment in time, it's probably good to have a conversation about it. Um, at the minute, it's just going to feel like hopefully not like a lecture. So, definition of identity from the Oxford Dictionary, at least, is the fact of being who or what a person or thing is. So, you're talking about a kind of holistic thing. So, if you're talking about a person or a thing and it being their identity, then you're talking really about the person or thing. So to criticize somebody's identity is really to be critical of their being. In that respect, it's important to respect people's identity because you are talking about their existence. So when it comes to people's feelings of worth and their self esteem, then you're really attacking a person, and I suppose that's why people do get quite upset whenever we are playing politics with identity and not respecting that. When we talk about identity as a concept with regard to my work and practice, identity can be described as certain norms and characteristics, and they can be personal, cultural, and even structural. So, structural being somebody's national identity, or you can talk about culturally, it could be their ethnicity, and maybe even subcultures. You could talk about, like if they're like skaters or goths or um, chavs, so that's a subculture identity. But a cultural identity can be characterized by, certain dress and behaviors and language and stuff like that. And then your personal identity is your own. So you might be from the traveling community, let's say, but your own personal identity might identify differently from your wider culture, um, and then that might be different as well as far as like your national identity. So obviously, in the UK and Ireland, people from the traveling community can identify with whatever nationality that um, they want. I suppose that's the same for everybody. Realistically, in this island alone is protected under the Good Friday Agreement. In the north, that you can identify as British or Irish, and that's protected in law. So that's like your national identity. Um, Citizenship's a completely different thing, and that's a separate matter. Um, but identity being something that you choose, and that is who you are, or that is who you identify as being. So why am I talking about identity? I'm talking about identity today because in my working experience and who I am as a person is largely shaped by this concept of anti-oppressive practice. So anti-oppressive practice as a sociological youth work concept is that you do not use your experience and your values to negatively impact somebody's living experience. Okay, so an example of anti-oppressive practice from my experience is obviously I'm from the LGBT community, and I have worked with people that are fairly conservative and don't really have a lot of positive things to say about the LGBT community, and that hasn't affected how that I receive them, and how I was able to work with them and help them in whatever it was that they were finding difficult. Specifically with like young people, the easy thing to comfort myself was that they were influenced largely by their community or at home, um, and whilst I could challenge certain aspects of that, the first thing that I needed was to respect that we needed a relationship. So they needed to be able to trust me and trust that I had no judgment and wasn't going to shut them down. Um, but once I developed that level of trust and we had a relationship, I was able to um, try to get them to empathize more than anything, rather than just saying you're wrong. Now, there are certain limits as well that can be required, to stop oppressive practice as well. So there is a fine balance, but ultimately my value system is not to judge them, to respect that they have an opinion. I might not agree with it, but in a libertarian sort of way, they're entitled to their opinion, and we can live and let live. But I felt if I was to go in very if I was to go in very hard on people, especially young people, um, it nearly creates a shift in how they would receive me, and that could be perceived as oppressive practice then on my account. So there's a delicate balance. I know that there are certain things you shouldn't have to accept, and you need a challenge immediately. However, I think in the long run, from my experience, it's better to have a conversation, and once we're able to get a good dialogue, then we're able to see both sides and hopefully influence each other positively in that exchange. So Neil Thompson has a concept called the lens model for anti-oppressive practice, and the lens model has three layers to how we see the world, and what lens we see the world from. So it's your personal, your cultural, and your the structural lens. Um, so structurally, where you are in the world, are you in a Western society? Are you more in an Eastern society? Is it affected by predominantly Christian ethos or Islam or uh, Buddhist? Um, so that's a structural, national, even continental um, lens. And then, as I say, culturally, you're talking about your ethnicity or yeah, your race and cultural is the next layer underneath that, and then personal. So it's layered up and it's layered down, and understanding people's lenses can help you understand how they see the world. For instance, if somebody who wasn't born in Ireland um, moves and they see things differently, this is how we're able to learn from each other, and we get the big melting pot. That some people are against, but it's a good exchange. People are very quick to have a Chinese or an Italian at the weekend, and these are fusions, different um, different influences from other countries and cultures. So um, that's a positive thing. My working practice, my first interaction with anti-oppressive practice was from a model for effective practice, which was the model used for youth work through the Department of Education in Northern Ireland. And the model had three core values, which was equity, diversity, and interdependence. And it was underpinned by core principles. So one of the core principles was testing values and beliefs. So my work as a youth worker meant that I should find fairness with equity, um, promote diversity, and that extends beyond people's cultural identities and different nationalities, all the way to um, other protected characteristics like if somebody had a disability, or we're talking about LGBT people, so that's an element of diversity. That was a core value of youth work and a core value of mine. My biggest core value was interdependence, and still is. So interdependence is the concept that if independence promotes us getting our needs met on our own and not needing other people, it's isolating and it's not effective and it's not ideal in as society, as human beings. We are social beings. We understand that we do need other people, and promoting an interdependence means that we don't get codependent on other people or services. So, understanding your own power, empowering other people, and utilizing everybody's individual strengths to get goals achieved, really. But specifically for young people, it's about keeping them safe. Um, and I suppose in my experience as well, I find it difficult to ask for help. I'm the sort of person there who um, still finds it difficult to ask for help. I will quickly help other people before helping myself, and yeah, that's my personal work. But I still promote the concept of interdependence. So as I say, one of the core principles was testing values and beliefs, and I witnessed that before in a youth club that I worked in, and I remember the youth worker in there challenged somebody about the language that they were using, specifically because yes, it was oppressive, but it also was an opinion there that I think they were just repeating. And from memory, I believe it to be. Um, I remember it being homophobic, but I don't think the young person understood why it was hurtful to the other young person. And I remember that young person getting challenged really. They didn't look like they had a lot of shame. And I know in my experience growing up, um, from getting bullied and stuff like that, shame is really destructive, really destructive, and it shows up later on in your adult life. So to get shamed like that in a group full of people, I can see why people fall into these echo chambers and trying to get people to agree with them all the time. They're not used to having healthy, critical dialogue and almost debating things, like, do you know what I mean? So I don't think sometimes an opinion is fully formed until it's been challenged and you understand how you formed that opinion, where you got that from. Are you just repeating something that you heard? Is it from somebody there that you feel like you respect and you look up to? And if it's important to them, then it must be important to you, and you're just repeating it without really reflecting and understanding. So I think testing values and beliefs, there is a good reason to test, to really experiment with different ideas, different opinions, and yeah, create a forum there where you can really talk things out. Um, I know from a therapeutic point of view, it is the ideal way of doing things, to really hear each other. I suppose that's why a lot of people are saying a lot of things at the moment and really finding platforms to be heard. They just don't feel heard. And to get challenged at this moment in time almost feels like you're challenging their existence. So some of these opinions and some of these things there that they're saying are backed up by what they perceive to be their identity. Why is anti-oppressive practice important to me? I suppose the concept really is not to do harm to others, and that was a big, important experience of mine. Um, I've never wanted anybody to experience what I experienced growing up. Um, so I experienced a lot of oppression, and that has formed who I am. And it affected my physical well being and affected my emotional well being. So uh, I was always sort of a sick child, I got sick often, and yeah, I struggled to put weight on and stuff like that. That might have been my metabolism, I did boxing and stuff like that. But I always was tired, and that could also have been ADHD that was not picked up. I think listening to Gabor Mate, the ADHD was a coping mechanism in school later on because of the oppression that I experienced. So um, Gabor's argument is that it is a coping mechanism, it is a survival tool. I mean, if you're not able to speak out in the middle of a classroom, then you will dissociate. Um, and that makes sense to me. I know whenever I was getting roared at and picked on by teachers and my classmates, I couldn't escape from it physically. So yeah, your mind will drift. And I know when stress happens to me at times as well, I will dissociate. I find it difficult at times to complete tasks, and that might be to do with shutting down, dissociating, protecting myself, all those sort of things. So it makes sense to me. Gabor Mate's explanation for ADHD. Um, so yeah, so in primary school I was bullied, but it was worse when I was in secondary school. So I felt really isolated. Kids are cruel, obviously. They don't mean to be, but we're human beings. We are cruel, and yeah, I remember not feeling comfortable standing up for myself. I always thought that if I were to fight back, being a boxer, that I was going to bring shame to my family, to the sport, to my boxing club. So I took a lot of that on and internalized that. Um, and yeah, as I say, dissociated and stuff like that. So all the way up to I was 14, I internalized a lot of the messages that I was receiving, all the hate that I was getting for being that I didn't know that I was different. Like in the school that I went to, I was in a minority, being from like a Catholic nationalist background in the school that was integrated, and I was bullied for it. And my parents did my best to protect me from this, you know, idea that we were different. So that innocence led me to not be prepared for integrated school. I wouldn't uh, criticize integration. I think it's the best thing. I think coming out the other end of it and meeting people of different faiths and cultures and yeah, just people's different backgrounds. Uh, Socially and economically as well. So I came from a deprived area, and a lot of my friends then, were more affluent as well, and I don't think they might have interacted with someone like myself had it not been for that school. So I strongly promote an integration. However, as I say, look, my own experience was very oppressive, and whilst I don't blame anybody for that, having healed and gone through therapy, it was my own experience, and I had to learn the hard way how to stand up for myself and to not believe all the things that were being said about me. And yeah, I'm still learning to um, fight back, as it were. Like, I have no problem getting into a physical fight. Not that I'm promoting violence, so I've been physically hurt and emotionally hurt, and I can take all that on, and that has been something that has led me to be there for people. And you know yeah, I have no issue going in there and helping other people out and not being afraid, not being afraid of violence from other people as well, um, to not to my own detriment, because I don't feel like I've been harmed anyway, emotionally or physically, because I recognize the pain. I do recognize that these people are just acting out, and yeah, I can really tune into that pain. I feel it for them. I've been there. Um, I just internalize my pain, and yeah. Um, so when I got to about 14, the physical manifestation of my pain and that experience and stress was I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. Um, and ulcerative colitis is an inflammatory bowel disease. So, yeah, I had a very difficult time trying to maintain weight, to maintain hydration, and ultimately maintain stress. So my boxing career kind of went out the window, and yeah. So a lot of the internalized oppressive feelings that I felt was obviously, you know, the sectarian abuse, um, just the negative messages that were being said to me as well, just about me, just me as a person. You know what I mean? And then obviously I had to come to terms with my own sexual identity, and in the 90s, it wasn't well promoted being queer in any kind of way. Um, there was still a lot of homophobia and stuff like that, and then growing up in the noughties, it was maybe a wee bit more acceptable, but I didn't come out until I was 21. Um, and as I say, look, the all the negative feelings that I had were internalized, and yeah, obviously my mental health was a big reason for getting into this sort of work. As I said before, it was easier for me to help other people than help myself. My attempts to, take my own life, um, were physical. It's been reflected to me by my therapist before that when I struggle to speak, sometimes she can see it in my neck, she can see it in my throat, see it in my chest. I can feel it now just talking about it. So trying to find a voice and stand up for myself and speak out, that is something there that the mind and the body are one. But to look at them in isolation and try to treat them in isolation isn't helpful. So I do believe in what Gabor Mate says. Like, yes, medical doctors are good with the soma, and we have psychologists as well who are good with the psyche, but we should be looking at both. Sometimes physical manifestations of illness present in the mind, and sometimes mental illness can manifest it in itself physically. I would say that about my own colitis. I don't manage my colitis with medication. I manage it with my well-being and stress. So, um, not promoting that for anybody. Um, it's just something that's worked for me. Um, Look, it's important to note that whilst I manage my own colitis through sport and counselling and my social interactions and manage my stress, that has been the key for me and me alone. That is personal to me, and it's worked so far. It wouldn't be recommended by a doctor, and I don't distrust doctors. One of the ways I've been able to manage my colitis has been just managing my stress. So I've kept myself in remission from colitis for over 5 years through stress management. So I would argue that some of the healing up here has promoted healing in my gut. Yeah, it can be very difficult. My experience has been very difficult trying to balance challenging oppressive language and just challenging a person. I would promote getting a relationship. It's one thing that's worked for me anyway, and it would be one of the core conditions of Roger's person-centered approach, to have unconditional positive regard and to yeah, to have an empathetic understanding of somebody. So whilst I might not agree with what they're saying, I can at least put myself in their shoes and try to understand where they're coming from and why they might have that opinion. Um, and for unconditional positive regard, it's really believing that they can change. See, like, so person centered approach is about growth. So, and learning. So hopefully, like, learning from each other. Then, um, by observing unconditional positive regard, we can really respect each other. Um, and the core condition of congruence and that authenticity sometimes gets abused by people saying what they think and feel regardless of how that might make other people feel, because they think that that's them being authentic. Being authentic just means that you're willing to, um, yeah, you're not being naive in saying that you agree with something when you actually don't. And it can be an internal thing, so whilst we might not, agree with certain political opinions or that are at an extreme end, like racism, um, if we can believe that people can change and we can understand where they're coming from, then yeah, we can observe all three of those core conditions and promote that growth, through our one-to-one work. So another experience of mine of anti-oppressive practice, has been observing Kierkegaard's drama triangle. The drama triangle, sorry, is that you could be a rescuer, a persecutor, or a victim. With regards to Kierkegaard's drama triangle and falling into one of those three roles, or recognizing it in other people is the more important thing. So if we can recognize when somebody um, has experienced something difficult and they are in a victim mentality, then it's how do we support them emotionally and coach them through what's going on, whilst not excusing them being able to perform a task or being able to meet a goal or something like that. So it's all about trying to empower that person so that they don't keep that victim mindset. Um, Because what happens sometimes then, like myself, I was a victim of bullying. I could have maintained that helplessness, and whilst I was helpless, I could be asking other people to try to rescue me, and don't get me wrong, people did, but that wasn't helpful for me. And then when I was looking for people to help me and then they weren't available, then I felt um, more like a victim and I could have persecuted other people and took out my pain and frustration on other people. So I had to observe all that and make sure that that didn't happen with other people. Now, don't get me wrong, I am a typical rescuer, um, up to a limit. Um, so it gets to a point then where I understand then that I have to stop because I really need to get. You normally want to help people get out of that victim mentality, but there are limits and boundaries are an important thing for everybody to um, work on and to realize. But it's individual for yourself. What limit do you have before you're like, right, that's okay, that's enough. I can't help you anymore. You're kind of on your own. You can observe a victim mindset with some of these males at the minute who are describing themselves as involuntary celibate. So they feel like they're victims of um, women oppressing them, and then they are persecuting them. And there's this element now where there's so much violence, even just microaggressions towards women and girls, and they feel justified in that because they feel victimized. So how do we challenge that? How do we get people to not feel like victims anymore, whilst respecting that they should not oppress other people? So how do we empower these people to feel better about themselves, have more empathetic understanding of the people there that they're trying to take out their own feelings of insecurity on? So respecting women and girls, and how do they get other people from trying to rescue them from that? So we've got all these toxic groups and this manosphere of people trying to help each other out, which is ultimately exploitative. These people are charging young people to be coached, and you know a lot of these young males that I've experienced are just looking for a role model. They're looking for a positive male role model. It might not exist at home, and for the most part, it usually is the truth that it's not there. It's not available at home. I know as a boxing coach, and in the area at Derry where we had a boxing club, we kind of supplemented that role. We surrogated a father type figure for a lot of these young males, and my work with young people in general, I understood my role, and moving it back down to oppressive practice, if I was that way inclined, I could have influenced a lot of young people in negative ways, to suit my needs. And that is something there that uh, you have to pay great attention to, how you influence other people. So the way that I described earlier about how I prefer to do it is I don't tell people how to feel. I don't tell people how to act. A role model for myself, what is, in my view, positive and healthy. And I have conversations with young people, and I try to get a better understanding of where they are forming these opinions, and try to um, challenge without oppressing them. You know, can they see things from a different point of view? That element of anti-oppressive practice and respect and identity and testing values and beliefs, that these are all youth work concepts. It shaped who I am as a practitioner. It's ultimately formed by my experience of oppression as well, and given my family and where I'm from, that helped my value base, and the relationships that I developed and protect um, are part of my character, and they support how I continue to receive people, and how I have conversations and stuff like that. So identity is really important for people. Their gender identity, their sexuality, their faith, their national identity, um, who they support, like football teams and stuff like that. These are all really important for young people, for anybody. And I don't understand why we can't just live and let live, in the best possible way. Don't get me wrong, there are opinions out there that are oppressive, and hate exists. There's a specific bit of legislation in NI at the minute that is not put through with regard to hate crimes, and it will help anybody experiencing racial abuse and violence, and also members of the trans community are um, not protected in the same way at the moment, because that law is not through at the minute. Um, so there are people continuing to oppress marginalised people in the north, and they're getting away with it lawfully. And I would argue that because it's not enshrined in law, people think that it's almost promoted. Um, there are political leaders getting away with that and promoting um, intolerance. Look, I don't want to be, don't be sounding like a big hippie here, like, but why can we not just tolerate each other? Um, like in the north here, we were at war with each other. People, unfortunately lost their lives, but people continue to take their own life, and there's so much violence. Um, and for what? And there's so much violence, and for what? We're not getting anywhere. Um, we need more hope. I believe we need more hope. I think working with young people gives me a better understanding for what is to come in a lot of ways. And look, I'm not out to brainwash young people. Um, I think inherently there's so much hope coming from them when it comes to feeling strongly about their own identity and really speaking out, and how they're speaking truth to power with regard to the climate, when it comes to gender. um, People are worried and try to say that there's an agenda that is being pushed and people are being influenced. But I think it's just a lot of people feeling more comfortable and feeling like when there is hope and there is acceptance, then they are permitted to be their authentic self, and they will do that. They will put themselves out there. I know for myself, I needed to come out. My existence was under threat. I couldn't live incongruent to who I am. Yeah, I had to live authentically. Um, yeah, I had to live authentically. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. And I would say that extends to a lot of other people who are, the concept of marginalized means they're in a small minority. And why would you pick on, it's like playground stuff. Why would you pick on somebody for being different and being in the minority? Like like why? Are you that insecure that you have to take it out on other people? Like, get over yourself. Like, do you not know how much of your own power that you have that you're abusing? So what's the solution? We need, from a top down approach. I think if we had the law better protecting people, this move to get away from the European Court of Human Rights is a move to oppress people. Take away your labor laws, your right to protest, your right to challenge oppression, um, your right to be treated fairly. Um, yeah, it's designed to promote and maintain more repression. Um, it's not about liberty. It's not about freedom. Um, you know, these laws were hard fought. I would say anybody that is in receipt of public funds should now adopt certain values and policies that continue to respect and protect people, but also, specifically with like ending violence against women and girls. We if we had workshops, um, and we had policy, and we had the legislation all lined up, and anybody in receipt of public funding should meet certain criteria, then I think that's a good top down approach. One of the workshops that promote protecting women and girls. Yeah, we need a campaign. We need some sort of campaign. I think from a top down, um, having more role models would be important. So, when we looked at the Black Lives Matter, that was a big campaign. It was very successful, and then it got minimized and squashed and challenged, and yeah. But in essence, it was a good campaign. We could have the same for ending violence against women and girls. Um, we could have some sort of conversation there about how do we protect young boys from this opinion and culture, um, whilst not shaming them, and making them feel more empowered in a way that isn't oppressive. Um, if they're feeling more empowered, they're less likely to feel like victims. If they're less likely to feel like victims, then they are less likely to be oppressive and yeah, persecute other people. So yeah, it'd be good to have some male role models that are positive, promoting this sort of stuff. I think people are afraid to touch it, but we also need to see more females in charge. Really, yeah, we just need more women in charge. I think there should be good legislation for boards and organizations to have better. Um, I know we talk about equity, diversity, and interdependence, and people call it DEI in America and stuff like that, and it's being really challenged, of being unhealthy and not helpful. But, Scandinavians have it worked out really well. I mean, Iceland is the best, and yeah, they have it in law that most boards should have, if it's not 50-50, I think it's 70-30, at least 30% or 40% um, females in positions of power within organizations, and that is helpful. Yeah, I mean, like if the population's made up 50% male and 50% female, why can't we have that in law in all structures? Why not? So a bottom up way of tackling all this sort of stuff might be that um, sports clubs, um, other organisations that work with males, young males, or adult males, that we have more visibility, challenging these messages of misogyny. If we could get spaces there that challenge the violence against women and girls, challenge violence against males on males, just challenge violence, period. Violence against other people, self violence, and yeah, um, yeah, that promotes acceptance, understanding, dialogue, and yeah, positive positive health, positive well-being, positive mental health, if we've got, if we can promote more positive male role models, positive males. Yeah, what sells for like newspapers and stuff like that is violence, and a lot of this violence is perpetrated by males. So we need a, yeah, we need to balance that out so that there's more positive males out there. Yeah, because as I say, you know, a lot of these young fellas are grasping for something good. So we need safe spaces as well. We need safe spaces for women and girls. We need safe spaces for other marginalised people as well. Um, I know people would be critical of different ethnicities, and there's a lot of Islamophobia out there, and people challenge it as, like, you know, a lack of integration and stuff like that. You know, people feel safe, and yeah, I think the workplace is an easy way for people to integrate, but school is the best way. Um, I know Mandela promoted that post apartheid South Africa. You know, he said integration was key um, in the future for young people, and you know, youth services are being cut, and that is the best vehicle for the next generation of people that will vote and legislate, and yeah, just the future. We need to be looking at young people, and we need to be giving young people true power, not just, you know, listen to them and speaking on their behalf. They need to be in spaces where they are speaking truth to power. So you know, youth forums are very important. A very easy observation of mine for safe spaces for people going out socially and the nightlife um, are like queer venues. So it's very easy to observe a lot of women um, feeling safe in some of these environments. And I know from my own experience there are certain venues then that get dominated by I'm going to say specifically cisgender straight women going into these spaces, so they feel safe. They're not going to get harassed by cisgender straight males and stuff like that, so they feel safe. But all of a sudden, then the straight men will work out where these women are hiding out, and they will go there, and then they will start to take over, and the space that was designed to make queer people feel safe, including trans people, gets overrun, and then they stop feeling safe. And where do they go? And that is the dangerous thing for queer people at the minute, is these spaces no longer being safe anymore, and we don't like to discriminate, and it's very difficult for people to check their privilege at the door there whenever they're being asked, you know, do you know what sort of venue this is? And you can't say, like, you know, are you straight or not? Because this is a private establishment, and you know, we don't take kindly to your types around here or something like that. But it is really important for people to respect that these spaces exist for people to feel safe. So I suppose one good way that women have created their own sort of spaces has been, like, at least around here in Belfast, has been you know, the likes of the brunches and stuff like that. So from my experience, it's predominantly dominated by women, and it's brilliant, and they all seem to have a lot of fun. And yeah, I think more power to them for that. But I think equally there should be respect then for queer spaces, like, you know. So We just need to create more safe spaces, realistically. So I suppose we just really need to be brave at this moment in time. Um, really need to be brave. We need more visibility for all the positive stuff. We need to respect difference. We shouldn't have to accept hate. So we need better protections. We need safer spaces. We need safer language. And yeah, we need to hear each other as well, rather than shutting people down if we can help it. Um, but we should also limit the platforms for hate. I suppose, from my own experience, I was oppressed and I had a choice. I decided I would not take my pain out on other people, and I would challenge anybody to reflect on themselves and ask themselves, are they projecting their own pain onto other people? Are they feeling so victimized that they have to take on the world or take it out on other people? And yeah, it is a choice. I think from a therapeutic point of view, ultimately it is a choice. Some people think it's neuroses exists because people aren't expressing themselves, but on the extreme end of that, overly expressing yourself, is narcissistic. So um, if all you're considering is yourself in both aspects, then you're not considering other people. And yeah, I think if we all want to heal together, we need to be thinking about other people. Anti-oppressive practice, identity. It's a choice. Uh, if we know that identity is somebody's being, and to challenge somebody's identity is to challenge their being, and to challenge their being is oppressive. An anti-oppressive practice is a choice. Okay, so what are we letting go of? We're going to let go of pain, hurt, fear, anger, helplessness, and hopelessness. And what we're going to bring in is hope, joy, courage, strength, and peace. Look, this is all my experience, and it's personal to me, and I hope my intention comes across, and I want people to not feel like they're on their own with some of this stuff. So hopefully it resonated somewhere positively, or at least take the stigma away and shame. And if it's a personal challenge for you, hopefully you get to reflect on it and heal. I have hope, and hopefully you have hope that we can get there, eventually, together, uh, through healing and with peace, inner peace. And this stuff that we experience as children shows up in our adult life. So yeah, be kind to yourself. Try not to feel shame. Feel safe. Be brave. So I just want to end this episode with a message of hope again. Um, yeah, hopefully my experience is helpful. Uh, whilst I experienced a lot of pain and that there's a lot of hope. I genuinely am hopeful for the next generation, and even people out there at the moment. Just take the time to be kind to yourself and other people. It is a choice. Um, there is a lot of pain out there. Go heal. Um, heal heal together. Ask for help. Take power back for yourself that doesn't abuse other people. And yeah, hopefully this stuff has resonated in a way that if it's your experience, you reflect on it and you heal and you feel less alone. If you recognize in other people, that you respect that they might be feeling pain. Go help them with compassion and not shame. And yeah, we're not alone here. Yeah, so you're not alone. But if you are feeling alone, I'm in your corner.